Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Tool Time with Professor Levy. Today, Amari is going to ask me a bunch of questions about how my career started and how I wound up where I am today. So, I'm going to turn it over to Amari and she can start asking me questions.
Okay, so my first question is, when did you first get into theater?
So, I moved to America with my father when I was 15, turning 16, and went to a high school in Princeton, New Jersey. Somehow I fell in with the theater kids at that school, and they were the technical theater kids. I didn't really have any interest in theater, but from that point I started to stage manage the shows, and then those friends of mine all graduated. They were all a year ahead of me, and there was nobody else to kind of take up the technical theater slack in the student body there, so I started building all the shows at my high school with my technical director and running them all and doing all the summer theater programs at the school during the summers.
That's very interesting. So, what led to the Opera Fest?
So I was in high school still, and I was doing A Midsummer Night's Dream with my theater program at the high school that summer, and I wandered in to take my final theater exam, whatever it was, at the end of the semester, and my director told me that I should call this guy at the New Jersey Opera Festival and that he would hire me to work there for the summer. And I said to Ms. Ohm, Julia was her name, and I said to her, what about the summer thing with the school? She said, you should do the job and just come to the theater thing whenever I could. So I called this guy, Bill Wyatt, I think was his name, with the New Jersey Opera Festival, and he said, yep, you're in. It was $300 a week, which seemed like an absurd amount of money to me at that point in my life. Must have been 17. Living at home, riding my bike to work every day. Um, so that was my first sort of entry into doing professional theater. We would take between 4 and 6 opera sets a summer, and we would flip them through the trucks. So we'd have one set on stage. Sometimes we'd have 2 or 3 different shows on stage in a day. So it was a pretty full-on entry into the theater world. We worked 6 days a week, 16 hours a day, and had Mondays off. I had a ball. I did that I worked for the Opera Festival until I was 21, or two. I took a year off from undergrad. And working for the Opera Festival resided at a theater in New Jersey called McCarter Theater, which is a pretty well-known regional theater. But they weren't part of the theater. It was just there during the summer times. So the guys at McCarter got to know me really well, and they got to liking me enough that they asked me to work for them on a what we call overhire, so they would call me if they needed me. Um, so I got to work some really cool shows like Stomp, like the Stuttgart Ballet. Um, there was a ballet dancer named Mikhail Baryshnikov who came through the theater, who I got to be his driver for a summer. Some really cool opportunities as a 17 or 18-year-old kid.
You said you went to undergrad. Where did you go for undergrad?
So out of high school, I went to Carnegie Mellon into their conservatory program and absolutely hated it. I, I thought I wanted that much theater in my life, but I didn't. I needed a little bit more English and history and other things as well. So I took a year off. I worked for the Opera Festival in McCarter, and then I wound up going down to North Carolina to a town called Brevard and worked in the Forest Service there for a little while. Loved the town enough that I applied to the college there, got in, and uh, was the first person out of their technical theater program.
Mm, interesting. What did you do after undergrad?
After undergrad, so I graduated in '04. that summer, I went to Seaside Music Theater, which is in Daytona Beach, and worked as a carpenter, I think. I was either an intern or a carpenter, but I think it was a carpenter. Seaside Music Theater no longer exists, but we did Aida, we did Moby Dick the musical, which was awful. Uh, Disney's Aladdin, I think. And I'm sure we did a couple more shows. And then after Seaside, I went to Riverside Theater in, oh gosh, where was that? Vero Beach, Florida. And I was their children's theater design intern. So I spent a year at Riverside Theater in Vero Beach, Florida, designing scenery and lights for all of their children's shows.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Did you decide to go to grad school, and where did you go?
So while I was at Riverside Theater, Riverside had a main theater and a children's theater, and as the design intern, I was kind of stuck between the two theaters, and they kind of had a bumpy relationship with each other, so I was always kind of stuck in the middle of it. So one day I got annoyed enough with the children's theater that an old friend of mine from the Jersey Opera Festival had once said to me if I ever needed a favor to give him a call. He happened to be the head of the technical theater graduate degree program at Florida State University. So I emailed Robert and said I want to go to grad school. He said, okay, you're in, just apply. So I did, went to Florida State and wound up finishing my graduate degree at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa.
Oh, that's really cool. So during the summers of grad school, how did you feel your time?
So again, working at Summer Stock Theater. So when I was at Florida State, I went to Barrington Stage Company, which is in Massachusetts. So this would have been 2005 and 2006. So I went up there and was their assistant technical director for those 2 summers. So I was responsible for being the technical director for all of their second stage shows. They would have a main stage season and then a smaller venue where they would have a season of 4 or 5 shows, I guess. So that was those summers. Then when I was in Alabama, I got in with Red Mountain Theater Company, which is in Birmingham. I don't remember how I got involved with them. I think my design professor had an in, knew them, and they needed a technical director, so they suggested me. One of my buddies was the designer for a show up there. It was Beauty and the Beast. So we did that one summer, and that kind of led into Keith Cromwell, who is the executive director of that theater, would just I was kind of his pocket TD. He would dial me whenever he had an emergency. So I remember one time in grad school having to race up there to figure out a snow effect for whatever their Christmas show was.
So now that you're done with grad school, how did you end up here?
So after graduate school, so I graduated from UA in 2009. The next year and a bit I spent in Tuscaloosa still. I wound up as the TD at a community college there. Theater Tuscaloosa was the name of the school. You'll see me wearing a t-shirt of theirs every now and then. So I stayed there for a while and then wound up in Virginia, in Norfolk. And there's a thing, again, called overhire in the theater where it's kind of like just casual labor. So I didn't have a real job here, so I was just overhiring around the area. I would work for Virginia Opera. I would work for Virginia Stage Company. I would work for the Sandler Center, which is out in Virginia Beach. And then eventually I got on with an outfit in Portsmouth called Virginia Scenic. Virginia Scenic is a commercial scene shop. So basically when a company wants to do a show and they don't want to build the scenery themselves, they'll hire Virginia Scenic to build the scenery for them. It's kind of how Broadway operates too. and that was great. I was making ridiculous money, working ridiculous hours. But I wanted to be a technical director. I didn't want to just build scenery. So I'd been trying to become the TD at the stage company, Virginia Stage Company. Um, and I finally got an offer from them to come be their technical director at the end of that year. So I became the TD for the stage company. That lasted until 2013, I think. And I'd kind of outgrown them in the need for more money and wanting to do bigger things. Mm-hmm. So I went up to Connecticut to a theater up there called Westport Country Playhouse and was their technical director. I was dealing with scenic budgets that were twice what I was used to dealing with, or 3 times as much as what I was used to dealing with at the stage company. Yeah. All of the personnel that worked for me were all union, which meant they were making more money than me, but it was also a lot more professional, I would say, and a different way of operating. So I was there for a year and a half, made some really cool contacts with some designers up there that'll pop up later on, and then got engaged to my wife, who was still down here in Norfolk. So I decided I wanted to come back. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. We were looking at a bunch of different jobs. Yes. One of them was out in Kentucky at a university, at Western Kentucky University. One was at the stage company as their technical director again. And there was a third one that I can't even remember where it was at this point. But ultimately, we decided to come back here. I stayed as the TD for the stage company probably 14, 15, 15, 16. That sounds about right. So for 2 more years. Mm-hmm. And then Norfolk State did a co-production with Virginia Stage Company of The Wiz, which was my first introduction to Professor Stockard and the students here. I have been trying to get into education forever. And I kept butting up against all these universities, wanted people with tons of experience, but also with university experience. But all I had was professional experience. So I managed to get the job here and have been here. This is the start of year 4 for me. So 3.5 years now.
What made you start teaching?
The students at the Wiz at the stage company. I had never bumped into people working in the theater who were so eager, respectful, and invested in what they were doing. And invested and eager to know things that were completely outside of the realm of what they were doing. Yeah. They were just intrigued about the process as a whole, and it was inspiring.
Do you like it here?
I love it here. Again, the students here are just amazing. The technology we have in this building is cutting edge. And we're building a program. This is year 3 of the program, year 2.5 of the program, somewhere around there. So we're starting to get students that are interested in technical theater. We've got amazing acting students. We're proving to the world that we can still do stuff during a pandemic and do it safely. Yes. So no, I couldn't imagine being anywhere other than where I am.
That's great.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you learned a bit about where I came from today. When I teach stagecraft, I try to relate everything that I'm talking about back to career avenues in the field, because everything that I've been teaching through stagecraft this semester directly leads to jobs. And with the remote teaching this semester, it's been hard to do that for some reason. So I wanted to spend today's video just letting you know about how I came up in the theater and how this is an industry where you do one thing and 3 other doors open up for you. So thank you again for watching, and we will see you next time.